There is an important 4680 development that just happened. Tesla supplier Panasonic has announced that it has finalized preparations for the mass production of its 4680 EV batteries. So it's ready to supply batteries to Tesla. Even James agrees that this is indeed big news, but who is buying these batteries? Is it just Tesla, or are other companies also buying them? We know though that they are sending out customer samples for qualification and approval. They are internally ready pending customer feedback on samples is how I personally understand it, as well as Jeff. But seeing this news from Panasonic is definitely great news for us Tesla stock investors. Now, interestingly, this plant is actually in Japan, and production is going to be ramping up until March of 2025. So it will take a little bit of time, but it's happening. This specific factory, though, is going to serve as a site for trying out processes that it could implement at other battery plants. So that's why this factory is in Japan, closer to where all the important engineers are. And the market seems to like today's Tesla stock news. Tesla stock is up, so click the like button right now. The limiting factor account is doing a really good job about batteries, so I consider this account to be highly credible actually. And he says this battery cell will be produced in Japan, and from memory the factory will be about 10 gigawatt hours. It should be enough for about 100,000 vehicles per year. It's not clear where these battery cells are going to go, but probably most of them, if not all of them, could go to Tesla, because the capacity is not exactly huge and Tesla can probably take all of it. However, I would caution that these battery cells will likely have different performance specs than Tesla's 4680 cells. That means if they did use the cells, they would have to go into a different battery pack. I'm not sure if that's worth Tesla's time when there's a glut of battery cells out there. It's also going to take a year or two for this factory to ramp production. Interested to see how it all plays out. Notably, these battery cells would also have to be shipped all the way from Japan to the US. So the more that I think about it, the more likely it is that they found Japanese customers for these cells. But you know how they cannot really ship batteries from China to the US, although they still do it anyway because it just makes sense, as these batteries are so cheap. But these batteries, you do not get that $7,500 tax credit. But if you get the batteries from Japan, I think you would get it. So it actually probably makes sense, unless you can find batteries that are just made in the US, which is quite difficult to do still to this day. And I think it's highly likely that the limiting factor for Tesla Cybertruck in terms of scaling it faster is batteries. So if we have more 4680 batteries coming online, I see that as a very good thing for Tesla. Here's some big news for Tesla. Renault CEO just said that the European automakers may have to pay 15 billion euros in fines for carbon emissions or give up production of more than 2.5 million vehicles. Ooh, check this out. Tesla's secret unboxed process has been revealed. This is, of course, a groundbreaking innovation. This will vastly increase manufacturing speed and lower costs. Too bad they're behind their own schedule. Regardless, they are still at least 5 years early relatively to other players. This is a patent from Tesla, and there are some key innovations here. This gets a little bit technical. Pause if you like to read all the technicalities, but I will just go through some of the key advantages. Obviously, reduce factory footprint, reducing costs and complexity, increase manufacturing parallelism and efficiency, improve flexibility for different vehicle models, which is important. Then potential for higher automation in assembly process, reducing costs further, reduced material handling and transport inefficiencies. There are also variations, different levels of unboxing, 2.5 to 6 faces of the vehicle, adaptable to various vehicle types, sedans, trucks, and SUVs. Multiple joining and sealing techniques are used. Potentially, this is revolutionizing automotive production processes. Again, feel free to pause again if you're into technical descriptions. Here are a few more patent pages from Tesla showing how it all works and how it all comes together. As you can see, it was filed in February, but it was just published. When it comes to FSD, James doesn't use words like nutty, but he's literally just said, this is just nutty, let me show you. And this is FSD. Well, technically not really, because it's actually Smart Summon. And this is a clip from AI Driver showing you a video of about 2 minutes. I sped it up to 2x speed of how far the summon can actually go. He really pushed the limit of the actually Smart Summon feature here, and it's working. So you could, I mean, there's no one there supervising it inside the vehicle. You do have a person supervising looking at the phone, but there is no one in the vehicle. So in a way, you can already call this performance here a robotaxi performance. And it just keeps going. It doesn't make mistakes. It just goes. This is the future. And many people are not seeing this yet. But it is happening and it's here. Omar is poking fun at people that are saying it hasn't improved since March. And this started a big heated debate. Check this out. Features have intervention rate, not so much relative to what's needed. You can remain in denial. That's fine. You are the one in denial, says Omar. You also call James a moron. It is quite easy to bring the 5-year-old out of you. Just criticize your man crush or point out facts about FSD. But you are incorrect. That miles per intervention has not improved. I test the software every day. And I believe Omar here is saying that when it comes to his personal experience, he gets a critical intervention maybe once every 1,000 miles. Keep in mind, he is in San Francisco, and of course, over there, FSD is going to work better. And the part here, to me, resembles a cat fight, and we know that there's at least one cat involved in this fight. You have been sharing your truth, but your truth is not the majority of people's truth. You're the one who misleads people by acting like FSD has been solved for 3 years and sharing zero intervention drives that really don't mean anything unless you can reproduce these at 1000x scale and in every region in the US. But the drives from 3 or 2 years ago that James is referring to, I think it was very clear that some of these drives were just one-offs. And if you watch my channel from about the videos from about 2 years ago, I reacted to many Omar's videos, and I on purpose would try to find the worst drives that he would post, and every week I could find some terrible drives, horribly terrifying drives. Now it's getting really difficult to do that. It's really difficult. And by the way, these zero intervention drives 3 years ago, 2 years ago, these were just highway drives, but now you're seeing city drives, no interventions, over and over and over again. So I think James is overreacting here by making a statement like that. He continues, I never said FSD won't be ever solved. What I said is that there has not been significant progress since March, and that is fact. Going from one intervention per 100 miles to 250 miles to 500 miles. They're not even there today when they need to be at one intervention per 10,000 miles or over that. This is not significant, says James, but I think there are some flaws with his methodology. One of the biggest things is that the data for 12.5 FSD versions, it's not coming from California on this FSD tracker, and we know that it works much better in California. So pay attention right now, look at where most of the data is coming from: Massachusetts, Illinois, and BC, British Columbia. That's Canada, that's not even the US. And if I add 12.3.6 right here, check out what happens to the data. All of a sudden, it's mostly California and Texas. I didn't even see Texas in the top 3 or California on 12.5, meaning the data is not going to be really that accurate to compare. And here's another thing that I've noticed. There have been more people that are skeptical about FSD trying it, and naturally they push the system to the absolute limit, making it look like there hasn't been as much progress as you would think. And when you look at someone who is a bull, of course, they are going to be a bit more positive towards FSD when they try it and when we give feedback about it. But when you listen to someone who's more of a bear, they will give you the absolute worst take about it. And from everything that I've seen, the overwhelming consensus is that the latest version is certainly better than the previous version. So looking at this data, you can quickly come to a conclusion that there is something wrong with the data. However, this is a data point, and I think it's important for us long-term investors to consider this data. Looking at the percentage of drives with no disengagements, that's still clearly better than the previous version. Another thing that I'm seeing is that, for example, spouses with 12.3.6, some husbands that have FSD software, they were not really that comfortable letting their wives try it, but with this latest FSD update, I am seeing people actually getting comfortable with that, which will then lead to more new people trying out FSD. And of course, when you have new people trying FSD, they're not as familiar with the system and they will tend to disengage a lot more than someone who is highly experienced. And one more important thing to consider about all of this data that you are seeing. Before, when I would get an FSD update, so this is about a year ago, I would take it through a relatively simple route, and then I got 12.3.6 and I took it to a somewhat more complex route, but still relatively speaking, you would call it not a very difficult route. It's about a 10 to 15 minute drive that I did hundreds of times. And then on 12.3.6, it actually started getting it right a lot of the times. So naturally, the next step was to find a much more difficult route. And for this newest version, people are really pushing it, choosing the absolute most difficult routes that maybe they would not really dare to try on V12.3.6 because people were still sort of getting familiar. Oh, is this really as good as people are saying it is? I'm not so sure. Let me take it through an easy route first many times. But now people sort of know what it's capable of, and they're just pushing it to the absolute limit, taking it through difficult routes. Now, there's also this post going around. So my husband thought it would be fun to show his friends how the new FSD Smart Summon feature worked after lunch today. His Tesla immediately turned into the car next to it, and he didn't have time to stop it. Definitely not ready yet, but there's a community note. This is not FSD Actual's Smart Summon. The scrapes on the Tesla are wrong for the car moving forward. If it were in reverse, it would have stopped once it hit the other car. The driver must continuously press a button in the app. So why didn't they release it? There's also one more thing. Actually, Smart Summon has not been wide released yet, so there is no way this could have been actually Smart Summon. But there has been a limited release, and he could have been one of the beta testers. But Omar says that it's really only a few cars, and I know who those people are. So probably Omar is right on this one. But yeah, if you were using actually Smart Summon, the car would have been going forward, and you would see no scratches behind. There would be scratches in front of the vehicle, because how could this scratch this area here unless you were reversing? Whoever did this has no shame. How embarrassing. And I found this chart, and this demonstrates exactly what I have been saying. So at first glance, it would seem like FSD is getting somewhat worse. Maybe even 12.3.6 is basically better, supposedly, than the latest FSD version. However, even though this data is just specifically for one person, which would be much better in terms of helping you understand how many interventions there actually are, because that person will have the same habits. But the dirty Tesla can't reply to this comment. I assume you make the drives harder too over time. I do. Oh, then how do you think the data would look? So even if the software gets better, but you put it through more and more difficult drives, what do you think the data could show you, even if the software got significantly better? If a route repeatedly gets completed with 0 interventions, I make a new route. And by the way, the dirty Tesla account, I think, is doing a great job. So this is by no way, in any way, shape, or form, a criticism of him. I appreciate his work a lot. I'm just pointing out a fact that is very important to understand if you want to really have his data as a useful data point. For example, I can tell you from personal experience that V11, when it came to construction zones, why would you even ever want to turn on FSD with V11 in a construction zone? But generally speaking, on V12, I haven't had any noticeable issues with construction zones. So if I compare construction zones specifically, you would see V12.3.6, for example, probably be 50 times, 100 times better, but you're not really seeing that here because no one would take V11 through construction zones, and that would not be reflected in the data. But most of the times, V12.3.6, from my experience, handle construction zones pretty well.
Now there's people walking. Yep, we're good. Now we got a guy double parked. Oh, look at that. And it goes around the guy who's double parked. So good. That's so impressive that it wouldn't just sit there, and it didn't even hesitate. It wasn't like, oh, let's see if he goes, let's just sit here for a minute. It's just, no, that guy's double parked. We're gonna go around him, especially with no one coming the other way. If someone was coming the other way, I bet it would have stopped.
By the way, this behavior, from my personal experience with FSD, wasn't really all that special. I have things like that happen to me all the time. This is a good example of how capable FSD is if you haven't really experienced it yourself, and the world, says Farzad, is completely blind to what's about to happen. Check this out. AI 3 and AI 4, which are hardware 3 and 4, have the exact same build of FSD 12.5.3 and call them unified models. Does that mean they figured out how to add more parameters to hardware 3, or that hardware 4 now has less? Between these two, more for hardware 3 is closer to the truth. New kernels that efficiently mimic hardware capabilities of hardware 4 allow hardware 3 to run the native hardware for models. As detailed by Tesla's Ashok, improvements have been made to the compiler and runtime to allow for some operations. AI4 has hardware accelerated to be emulated on AI3 via a GPU kernel. Oh, I like this. Tesla has introduced a new hands-free frunk feature for certain models. Open your frunk even when your hands are full. Stand still in front of your frunk with phone key unobstructed. Listen for the chimes and the frunk opens on its own. Now, before you try this, you actually need to enable this feature, and here's how to do it. You go to the settings, locks, and hands-free frunk. Also, you have to ensure your phone settings allow nearby interactions for the Tesla app, or simply open the app and go to phone key and upgrade. Most of the systems from other manufacturers that are similar to this sort of thing that I have tried, often I find it quite finicky. It works sometimes, but it's just a bit annoying. I wonder if this is actually really going to be useful, or is it one of these annoying features that sounds really good, but when you actually try it, it just doesn't quite deliver. However, over time, I'm sure that Tesla will definitely figure out how to make it work flawlessly, but it could take some time. We got the export number from Giga Shanghai for August, and tomorrow we will have the weekly China number. And I especially like this number here. Tesla reaches over 100,000 sales for the first time after 2 months of the quarter. This is the Chinese data. August is also the best month of the year so far with 63,500 units. As you can see, we are doing good. Check this out. It is an all-time record. We are definitely above any previous quarter when we look at the first 2 months. So Tesla in China is doing very well. And Elon actually personally responded to this story. Chinese car buyers are shunning Tesla as drivers flood the world's largest car market with more advanced EV models. Believing the news is silly, our Shanghai factory is running at max capacity. James agrees. This is being primarily driven by the domestic market, which is consuming 2,000 vehicles per day. Tesla is also exporting mostly Model 3. Last month, wholesale sales almost matched production. However, it's also important to keep in mind that Tesla is using China as a volume and revenue driver, but not as a profit driver. China average selling prices and profit per car are by far the lowest in the world. By the way, this is comparing China car sales, percentage of market share, 2020 versus 2024. And you can see the Chinese are doing better. The Japanese in China, worse. Germans in China, worse. Americans in China, worse. Koreans in China, worse. French in China, worse. Tesla in China, better. So in China, it's only Tesla against other Chinese companies. No other foreign companies are seriously competing in China. I've seen some disagreements between Jeff and James before, but Jeff is agreeing with what James is saying here. Last year, Giga Shanghai switched to Model 3 Highland production in August for launch in Q4. Management guided for lower Q3 production on the Q2 earnings call. There has been no news of factory upgrades or downtime in Q3 of this year. It is possible, likely even, that Tesla will guide for production downtime in Q4 for factory upgrades ahead of a Juniper Y launch in Q1, or they may be super stealth and say nothing but do the upgrades anyway. And factory upgrades will be needed because they are changing parts on the car. Tesla is hiring controls engineers to work on the 4680 cell manufacturing team, so Tesla must be making some progress there. Someone saw the Tesla Optimus interviewing for this role yesterday. And by the way, Audi employees have stolen 200 car keys to protest against the planned closure of the Audi plant in Belgium. The end of the plant has not yet been officially announced, but the BEVs produced by Audi in Brussels, they don't sell, and all of the indications are it will be closed. So they are trying to pressure Audi by not allowing Audi to sell cars that no one wants. I'm sure that will put a lot of pressure on Audi. Ooh, and check this out. Volkswagen Group currently trades near the post-Great Financial Crisis low, excluding the COVID panic selling in Q1 2020. Volkswagen Group share price is down 64% from the all-time high. Imagine you buy a stock in 2010, and in 2024, it's basically not up at all. Although keep in mind that they do pay dividends, so it's not like they didn't return any money to shareholders. The Volkswagen CEO says, the K has gotten smaller and we have more guests. And the economic environment has become even tougher because we are making cars that people don't really want. Tesla and BYD sold more EVs last year than all of Legacy Auto combined. And this is pretty big too. Shenzhen became the first city in China to have more electric vehicle fast charging stations than gas stations. It has about 4 million cars, of which 1 million are new energy vehicles. So some of them are hybrids. And China is on its way to end the coal era. China's approvals of new coal plants have plummeted by a lot. And this is why you wouldn't really want to buy some of these other cars. Chrysler here in Stellantis recalled almost 1.5 million vehicles worldwide due to a software malfunction, so naturally they would deploy an over-the-air software update, right? Right? NHTSA said dealers will update the anti-lock brake system control module software as a remedy, and this is not a problem that can be fixed via an over-the-air update. Oh, and it's happening now. Cybertruck Auto Park now shipping to early access program members. Gary Black just responded to criticism against him. Some people here argue Wall Street doesn't get the Tesla robotaxi opportunity. I don't think it's that. Wall Street wants proof that FSD will get to unsupervised autonomy in the near future after 5 years of promises that Teslas will soon drive themselves. You know, just like Wall Street also wanted proof between 2014-ish, let's say, and 2019-ish, that Tesla is going to be a successful EV company. And during this time, Wall Street didn't give Tesla much credit, which was a huge mistake because then suddenly, Tesla is going to make money from EVs and the Model Y is going to be the best-selling vehicle in the whole world. Oh, maybe we should buy some Tesla stock. It's a bit late now, said many Wall Street people, and some of them are still saying it's too late and they will witness another rise like this. Now, I have seen, and sometimes in the comments, I see a few comments saying, how has it been being a Tesla stock investor for the last 3 years? To which my response would be, how has it been being a Tesla stock investor for the last 6, 7-ish years? If you look through Tesla's history, generally, it has been a bad idea to be a Tesla stock investor for about 3 years, unless you got the timing really right. And by the way, before, it was possible to hold Tesla stock for 5 years and actually end up losing money. And some people actually did that. So anything less than 5 years, so preferably 6 years because you want to exceed 5 years. Anything under that, I would consider that not a long-term investing strategy in Tesla stock. And if you do it, well, then just know that you're facing a lot more risk. By the way, Andrei Karpathy, who just did this interview with no priors, he said that he believes that Tesla is ahead, basically, of Waymo and companies like that, even though it looks like Waymo is ahead. But that is just not going to be a scalable solution, he believes. And in the end, his position is that Tesla is going to beat all of these companies. And he was a Tesla insider. He no longer works at Tesla. So why would he still say that Tesla is going to win this race if he didn't actually believe it? And Tesla has filed 4 patents related to a wireless charging mat for vehicles. This mat is something the car will drive over and it will automatically start charging. While it's not clear what Teslas will use this, presumably Tesla's upcoming robotaxi will utilize this. There are actually 4 different patents here. That's it for today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you again later this week, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. By joining Patreon, you will have access to all of my exclusive videos on Patreon, as well as how much I am willing to pay for each Tesla share between 2024 and 2033. If you join the investor tier, you will also have access to my valuation model, where you will see all of my assumptions, including deliveries, the energy business, Tesla's future businesses like FSD, and of course much more. And then if you want to easily download that and put in your own numbers, then this third tier is for you. To all of my Patreon supporters, thank you so much. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet as well. It's really important to like the videos because that makes it less likely that the channel will be shadow banned later, like my other big channel got shadow banned before from about 50% of my regular viewers. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.